trying to track it and everything. And this big old guy walks up behind me and he goes, if there's an H over Texas and an L over Memphis, we're going to get snow. And I looked at him, and he was 100% right every single. So like you leave it to a guy from Chapel Hill, and we lost him recently, and I missed that guy dearly. But it was one of the funny stories early on of how do you predict snow? Well, talk to the camera guy. He knows, right? And then you go up against a guy like Bill Hall, who is a legend, right, on Channel 4.
Yes,
and it used to be so frustrating to go against Bill because he'd say, it's going to snow and or be sunny. And it was this way of hedging the forecast that Bill could never be wrong because of that, those two words next to each other, and or.
Brilliant. That's right.
And it was genius on his part. I love that guy. I mean, he's another one that's just missed and legendary.
Middle Tennessee's hard anyways because I-40 is that line, and it's always ice below it or snow above it.
It's when you look at the map, we're directly between the Great Lakes and the Gulf, and that middle area is tough, it's if you're 40 miles off, and predicting an inch of snow is kind of like predicting a brief shower in the summer, right? It's just one of the harder things to do. So, but I can tell now, I just look at the roads, and if the brine's on there, I'm like, all right, we're done.
It's coming.
Talk about Maine, where you're from, and of course, eventually you'll wind up down here in Nashville. Mm-hmm. So, tell us a little bit about home and family.
I spent a lot of years growing up in both Maine and Connecticut. My family's all up in Camden, Maine now. They all live on the same street. They all still get together and do the family dinners all the time. I'm kind of the black sheep of the family that left and never went back. And when I go back, they all look at me and say, "You look just like Matt Orn," or "You just look just like Pete Orn." And when they come down here, they get, "You look just like Neil Orn." It's a kind of funny thing going back and forth. But it was it was a great area to grow up in the Northeast. I loved it so much. But now I've been to the South now for 30 years, and I would never think about leaving here. This has become my home for sure.
So do they talk about your accent when you go home?
I have a Connecticut accent, which is neutral, which is nothing. But when anyone from Maine used to call up and they say, "Hello there, Neil there," and they would say, "You don't even have to ask for Neil. We know just when you say hello, you're looking for Neil," just because the accent was so thick. There were lobstermen who worked off our property who you couldn't understand what they were saying. You were just looking, growing up there, you were just looking for one or two words to tip you off to what they were trying to get at right there. But it was wonderful growing up there and great to be down here ever since. So, I have two girls that are Tennessee natives. Right. And that to me, that's a source of pride for me.
So siblings?
I have a younger sister and two older brothers, and they're all up in Maine. My mom is still with us. She's in Florida, and she is a force of nature. She is thriving. She's 90 years old, and sorry I couldn't answer the phone. I had to leave for the gym. I'm like, Mom's going to the gym. She's like, yeah, I have a trainer. She's outlived two of her trainers. She's gone to funerals for two trainers, and Mom, slow down. Take it easy a little bit. And made a terrible mistake. She loves cats, and she was losing. She was outliving her cats, right? And so I one time said, "Mom, have as many cats as you want. You deserve it."
Oh no!
Right. So next thing you go over her house and there's cats hanging from the curtains. Kittens that have how long has a kitten been on the curtain, Mom? But she has what's 4 now, hon? She just recently lost another one. So I imagine she'll be at the adoption center looking to adopt another one here pretty quick. But.
So you got your start, you followed your dad, kind of? Your dad was in...
My dad ran television stations growing up. First of all, my grandfather, he bought WPAT in Paterson, New Jersey. It was a small station, very small station. And the first day that he owned that station, he hired engineers to climb the tower and turn the directional signal directly at Manhattan. Oh, wow. So he made WPAT, Paterson, New Jersey station, into a New York City station. And then he bought 5 Woody wagons. He put his logo on the side of them, and he had those wagons just drive up and down Madison Avenue all day long. He was a genius, right?
No doubt.
And all of a sudden, he, like every advertising executive in New York City knew what my grandfather's station was. My father got into television through my mom's dad, my grandfather, and he was running television stations growing up. And I will be perfectly honest with you, after seeing the sausage being made my entire life, after the six of us would sit at a dinner table, and then there'd be a spot where there was a small TV so my dad could watch the nightly news, and if something went wrong, he would stand up without saying a word. He would leave. He would drive to work and chew whoever he had to chew out. So I wanted nothing to do with the business, and so I left. I started with the job with selling advertising for Better Homes and Gardens in New York City. I moved back to Denver, where I went to college. I'm condensing this because it's only an hour show, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I moved back to Denver. I was at a bar with some friends. I backed into a guy, almost got into a fight at a bar in Denver, and he turned out to be the general sales manager of radio station KZY. He hires me on the spot there after we talk it out, and the next day I'm selling radio ads. Well, when you do radio ads, you have to make spec commercials, right? So you have to cut those commercials to sell. I started spending more time in the studio cutting the commercials than I was out selling them. I wasn't a good salesperson, but I loved doing the production. Meantime, my dad moves back to Maine. He had run a station in Indianapolis, Indiana, then Bangor, Maine. Then he bought the two local stations, WRKD and WMCM. And I was talking to him one day on the phone. He said, well, if you like making commercials so much, why don't you just move back home and make commercials all day long? So my life became radio. I wake up, I'd go in, I'd dust off the snow that was on the satellite dishes, I'd turn the station on, I'd go collect the news, I'd write 3 different short newscasts for the day, I'd cut production commercials, and I would then go drive my brother's limousines back and forth to the airport and then bartend at night. And I basically had 2 jobs to support my radio habit, I used to tell people.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of those things. If you love it, and you'll do anything to keep doing it. My dad fired me because after 3 years, I never took a day off. I never left the station, and he was concerned for my just overall well-being.
Wow.
So he fired me, and I ended up sitting out in a boat. We had a little 13-foot Boston whaler. I sat in the boat answering cell phone calls from the radio station because no one knew how to do anything at the station. So I basically was working from a Boston whaler for
no pay.
For no pay. I was fired. So after that, I got back into it, and I was on a morning show with DJ McCoy, and worked with a guy named George Hale, who is still on the radio up there. George Hale, if you know Bangor, Maine, is an icon in radio. He's the one who taught me how to be in front of a microphone and how to be yourself. Because one day he brought me into his studio. We sat down just like we're sitting here, and we were shooting the breeze about what you up to, how's everything going, blah, blah, blah. And we were just talking. What are you doing today? Well, and then all of a sudden he hits the board and he says, we'll be right back in just one moment. I'm George Hale. And this is, and
that could happen today.
But it was this. Are we even on the radio right now? But that was the jolt. That was George's lesson to me, that being in front of a microphone, being in front of a camera is you're trying to break through the speaker, you're trying to break through the glass and be in person with someone. Yes. And that was a valuable lesson. So I got a call one day from the local meteorologist at WLBZ. His name's Steve McKay. I said, hey, can you do the weather for me? I'm going away for a week. I had long hair, I had the 615 cut going strong up there, and I had no suit. And I said yes, because I was just in a mood that day. And then I started calling my friends at the other radio stations. And to the T, everyone said, yeah, you already called me. And I said, no, I couldn't do it. And over, I finally called Steve back and said, am I the last guy in Bangor, Maine that you're going to ask? And he's like, absolutely. You were the last one. I was like, okay, I have 2 weeks. And I already know weather from some flying experience. I know how to read the maps. So I went in there and I rehearsed and I learned how to build maps, and I did everything. I'm going to say, I'm just going to show you. And if you want to hear about my first 4 days on TV, they're kind of legendary up in Maine. But the first day, back in those days, everything was reversed in the camera that you were looking at. I get off the air. The news director comes over the station speaker. Neil, could you come to my office, please? And we got to talk to you. And he's like, great job. just don't point at California
when you're talking about Maine.
when you're talking about Maine.
That would be me.
Next day I go in, and there's severe weather. We never get severe storms in Maine. There's a big old line of storms coming at us, and it looks like it's going to wipe us off the face of the planet. And I'm so nervous. The keys and change in my pocket are rattling loud enough where you could pick it up. You could hear it.
Oh, wow.
Get off the air. Neil, can you come to my office, please? Hey, great job covering the storms and pointing at Maine this time. And just empty your pockets before you go on air. Great. Got it.
You are renowned.
Third day, I'm getting comfortable. Now I'm starting to feel it, right? You know, the clickers used to have cords.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I start turning, and I ended up getting my feet wrapped around the cord and having to bunny hop off the side of the camera to get back to the desk there. Again, it's the news director. Hey, never turn your back to a camera. That's how you get wrapped up in cords. Got it. I can't remember the fourth day's highlight, but it was something. I really hope that comes back to me someday, because every single day. The fifth day, I do everything perfect. I go back. I sit next to the news anchor who was, in that day, the Ann Holt of Bangor, Maine. Like, this was the person that has been there forever and very serious, very renowned. Well, I sat too close to the front edge of the seat. And it was on wheels. And as that camera came up to the two shot where we talk about the weekend weather and, you know, great job filling in for Steve, my chair flips out from under me and I disappear. It was like the magic of TV where he's there and then he's not. And this woman, her name's Sharon, she lost it. Her head was on the table. She was banging on the table. They had to toss it to break without any, it just went to break. Well, it was the general manager who came over the station speaker next.
Oh,
and
man.
She was known for having zero tolerance, and she was very strict. And she came over, and she called me up to her office. And it was like a Bond movie, right? You walk into her office, her chair is turned back. She whirls it around. She looks at me. She said, well, that was one of the most interesting weeks of weather I think we've ever had here. And she said, you have to promise me right here and right now that whenever Steve McKay takes a vacation, you're going to fill in for him. And I was like, done deal.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
How cool.
Well, then, you know, so Steve goes on vacation, who knows how many months later. I fill in. Just did fine, right? Didn't know my dad was recording every single one of my weathers, and my dad, having TV contacts across the country, starts sending them out.
Wow.
I get a call from Nashville. Hey, Neil, it's Mike Seacrest. Can you come down and interview? I got a job. I come down, and he sits me down with the weather person, and she was busy making her maps, and he's like, can you show Neil how to work the machines and everything so we can run them through a few practice loops? She's like, sure. And as we're talking, she's like, so what job are you interviewing for? And I said, I think I'm reporting 3 days a week and then doing the weekend weather. And she looked at me and she said, that's what I do.
That's
Oh, no.
So that was like, oh. And then Lisa Patton was doing the evening weather at that point, and she said, if you want to watch, just stand on this side of the weather wall. So when I walk into the picture, you'll just be right there watching what I'm doing. I'm like, that's perfect. I didn't realize there was a drop-off of about 6 inches.
Oh, no.
So I'm backpedaling as she's walking to the wall, kind of like she's pushing me, but, you know, I step off that ledge, lose my balance, and I go tumbling back about 8 feet into a row of metal lockers. Now, have you ever hit a locker and that noise?
Yeah.
It sounded like the station was falling apart.
Sure.
So I pretty much figured I was going back to Maine at that point. But I went upstairs, and Mike's like, you're hired.
Wow.
And so it was kind of fun going back. No one believed me in Maine that I had a job until the moving truck pulled up. I lived right above the radio station. And we're all looking out the window like, there's the Mayflower truck out here, and they're looking for you. And I was like, I told you I got a job. No one believed me. So I ended up down here, and you know, my belief was like, I don't belong here. I don't deserve to be here. I have nothing to lose if I get fired tomorrow. So I just kind of had this, you know, just reckless abandon about doing TV in Nashville, and it worked out fine. You know, being the class clown paid off finally.
You've had some comedic experiences, haven't you?
Well, Neil, I hate to say it, but we got to go to break. So you know how I got to push that button.
I was waiting for that. My mouth is dry right now, Rick. Thanks.
We're going to take our first break. You're listening to Tuesday Morning Roundtable with Rick and Wayne, and we have Neil Warren with us today. But we'll take our first break. Be right back with you.
If you want to get some barbecue, I'll tell you how to do it. Head for the Slick Pig and you're into it. Just walk through the door at 1920 East Main and your nose will send a message right to your brain. Say, smells good. And barbecue. Slick Pig. We got ribs and beans. Got spicy wings. Slick Pig.
A Murfreesboro tradition. 1920 East Main.
Did you know that participating in Murfreesboro Special Census could help bring more funding to our city? This is Mayor Shane McFarland. An accurate population count means more shared state revenue for things like road repairs, park improvements, and new sidewalks. It's quick and easy. Visit murfreesborocensus.com or look for a letter from the city with a prepaid return envelope.
Count me in.
Okay, count me in.
And count me in too.
Help Murfreesboro get its fair share. Visit murfreesborocensus.com, complete the special census today, and you could qualify for a $100 gift card.
First Shot, growing in Christ with life and athletic skills.
So we teach God's Word at everything we do to implant it in them so that they understand that the only way to get through the world is with God on their side.
First Shot founder and executive director Andy Herzer.
Our focus is on our inner city here at Patterson Park.
From academics to athletics, First Shot's focus is toward building a stronger, more courageous spirit to face opportunities and obstacles that our youth confront every day. To find out more about First Shot, go to firstshottn.org.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
I've got pets.
AmeriCare is Rutherford County's #1 choice in pest control, and it's simple to see why. After calling 893-7111, their staff came to my house 8 years ago when I had an insect problem. They looked at the situation, showed me the areas and what they'd recommend to resolve the problem. After treatment and with quarterly checks, I'm bug, critter, and creepy crawly free. Thanks, AmeriCare.
Call the best of the best to get rid of your pets.
AmeriCare, 893-7111.
Now, WGNS Good Neighbor Events. Hey, did you get a new computer or a smartphone for Christmas? Well, if you did and you're still having some challenges with it, head over to one of the Rutherford County Public Library locations. They will help you learn how to operate that smartphone. And over at the library's Technology and Engagement Center, the Tech Center, they're even offering free computer classes. For more information, check with your Rutherford County Public Library system. Well, this coming weekend is your final opportunity to see the play that went wrong. It's over at the Springhouse Theater in Smyrna. This coming weekend, last chance. As we begin our celebration of our nation's 250th anniversary, the Colonel Hardy Murphy chapter invites you to the marker rededication ceremony for Revolutionary War Patriot Captain William Beatty. And this will be at the Beatty Farm, right there at 5331 Baker Road. 2 o'clock this coming Saturday at the Beatty Farm. There will be a reception at the conclusion of the ceremony. 2 o'clock Saturday at the Beatty Farm. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor Events.
Rutherford weather.
A winter weather advisory will go into effect tonight. We'll see partly sunny skies here for this afternoon with a high in the low 40s. Tonight, chance for snow 1 to 2 inches possible. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 30.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. Are you ready to take control of your energy usage and save money? Download the MyMTE app to track your energy consumption, pay your bill, and even report outages right from your phone. It's free and available now in iOS and Android.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Hey, good morning, and welcome back to the second segment of Tuesday Mornings with Rick and Wayne. And we're certainly honored to have media icon, Neil Oren.
Icon, I've never been called.
Well, been watching you on TV for 30
You're
years,
way
so
too kind.
you've got to be an icon.
You're not the same guy at the Friars of the Fish Fry. You're not. That's not the Wayne I came in to see.
Hey, can I tell one quick story?
Please.
I was president in 2004, so I don't remember at what point after how many years down the road, but I was going to do I was going to bless the meal before, and you made me a reverend.
I do remember that.
I love that. The only thing is, darn it, I don't have a tape of it. I would.
Well, Reverend Wayne. I mean, look, I if I had to go back and all the different times I made errors speaking.
I mean, usually, at a gathering like that, you usually get a minister or pastor to do it, and I'm not. Matter of fact, I think Carol said, "Hey, you're blessing the meal." I said, "Yes, ma'am."
Yeah. Oh, Karen.
And
I miss that woman.
I know.
Well, that's funny. I did one of the mail order minister things so that I could marry a couple friends of mine once. So yeah, I guess you could call me the Reverend.
There you go. I will. From now when we come back, I'll introduce you as Reverend Neil.
He said he didn't believe the certificate, so they went off and got married separately after the ceremony. So Colby, he's a baseball coach in town. I don't want to call him out, but anyway, the fish fry is by far one of my big events of the year, the way it brings a community together, the way we honor first responders or our military or whoever you choose to honor. It's always some group that's very special. And it's America, and it's so fun to bring my daughters to that event because they get to see it, right? And they get to see it firsthand, and they learn who to honor and why we honor those people and what they did and the story. They hear the stories, and so that to me has been a huge source of pride over the years. So what a privilege to be part of an event simply because I was just on TV during the witness protection program from 4 to 7 a.m., right?
Well, you were our centerpiece, so there you go.
Shout out to Paul Lamb, who's listening this morning.
Brother Paul, and Brother Paul was one of the several that came up with this event.
That's right.
It kind of morphed from 2 or 3 other things.
And he was giving me flight instruction, and then he brought me into the fish fry.
Oh, wow.
Which I used to call, what did I used to call it on the air? That was, I used to call it the wrong, the flight school was Wings of Freedom, and I used to call the fish fry the wing. I used
Wings
to call
of Freedom fish fry.
Yeah, I used to call the Wings of Eagles or Eagles.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then the first year we did it, I think you did 700 pounds of fish, or it was maybe 200 pounds the first year, and I went back on air and said it was 20,000 pounds of fish. So if you want to go back at all my little slip-ups there, we could spend another few hours on that.
Well, just in the 3 years that Rick and I've been doing it, I hope Rick's not keeping tabs or keeping a mark, because he's filled up a page on the things.
No way.
Well, you have to find some way to work without Carolyn Peoples now this year, because
she's hard to replace.
And like you said, it's going to be several people to do that one job.
Hire a new assistant, and then we have committees now to take care of what she did alone.
She was a force of nature.
That was her baby, and honestly, you didn't get invited into that circle very often.
Yeah.
If you did, it was a pleasure to be there for a minute. But,
well, somehow she continues to visit me. Mm-hmm. When you have like the suggested Instagram friends and stuff like that, Carolyn's always showing up just to say, "I'm still here.
Yeah,
I'm still going to haunt you. You're going to stay on your toes, and you're going to get the job done because I'm not leaving."
Carry yourselves accordingly. That's what she would say.
What say. That's right.
After 30 years of presenting the headlines around the mid-state, I suspect you've got some really funny stories, but some that may have been iconic.
When I got here, I was working with Victoria Hansen in the morning. That was a long time ago. We still stay in touch. She's still wonderful. But we had no ratings at all. We were the last people in with a morning show at Channel 2. 4 and 5 were established and just going gangbusters. And we had to kind of find our way of what our identity was going to be, and that kind of found us, because one day at the desk, the phone behind us, which was a studio to producer phone where you pick up and if you want to get instruction, rang. And the ringer was on, and it rang, and we're sitting there on the air, and I looked at Victoria and I said, well, you going to answer it? She picks it up, and it was a viewer who got through, and they were calling about a story that just aired, I think, on Channel 4. She's like, yeah, nope, that wasn't us. She's like, I'm pretty sure that's Channel 4 on the air. And we got, the general manager saw that segment. He said, that's the funniest thing I've seen. And we would go out, and people would constantly bring that up. And so we developed this chemistry that was just based on being ourselves in front of the camera. And if there was a dumb criminal, we made sure that everyone knew it was a dumb criminal, right?
Yeah.
And if it was a funny story, any way that we could relate a story to the audience, and that kind of, all of a sudden the ratings started going up, and everything was going in the right direction. And the only thing that slowed us down was the news director came to us one day and said, I have some great news. We got some great ideas for the show. And that's when I was like, oh no, we're in trouble. Yeah. And sure enough, but yeah, there were so many funny moments. There were so many meaningful moments. There were so many terrifying moments, right? And when you sit there and look at 30 years and every day you're filling up 3 hours of a newscast, you remember the Captain D's killers. We were talking about that. Paul Dennis Reed, what a monster that was.
Sure
and I remember the days of panic, the grip this area. It gives me chills talking about it, because it was just terrifying, because you knew he was going to strike again. Everyone knew it. And these poor little kids that were just victims. They were getting their first jobs. They were taking out the trash, and this monster would go in and there was that. Most recently was the Covenant shooting. And the things that changed for me is when you first get here, you don't really have any connections with the community, right? Mm-hmm. Stories are big. But as you go on and then you start having a family, you start settling down more, and you start to get to know FBI agents, you start to get to know police detectives, and you start to get to know them personally. Well, I can tell you, the morning of the Covenant shooting, I got a message, and it almost put me in tears. I knew everything that happened in that school before we even went on the air, before we had one single report.
Oh, goodness.
And I remember going on the air saying, look, I just want to give you a heads up. This is going to be a very difficult day in Middle Tennessee. And it was 3 hours later before we reported that anyone was lost in that. So for 3 hours I was sitting there, and in the middle of the coverage, I was the only one on air at our station, going out to different reporters, and everyone was very emotional that day. My daughter calls me up. Dad, are you okay? Mm-hmm. I lost it. It's like my daughter's at school, and I lost it. And that to me was when everything just becomes more and more real and realistic for you. But I did a podcast recently with a friend of mine, Virgil Herring. He's on the verge.
Oh, yeah.
He's a great golfer, great instructor.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I didn't realize what a great interview he was, right? And I was listening to his questions, and I'm just like, I could never do what he's doing right now. But he was asking me these questions about stories that I brought up, and my mind was blank. And I walked out of the podcast, and I said, Virgil, I know on the way home I'm going to think of 10 things I wanted to tell you that I never got out. And sure enough, I did. Right?
Yeah, you will. Yeah.
It's different when you're kind of reflecting back and trying to remember those moments. So yeah.
I guess the shuttle and 9/11. I guess those were memorable mornings as well.
You don't forget where on 9/11, Victoria and I had worked together, and we were kind of became like brother and sister that weren't getting along. And I went home, and it was during the Good Morning America breaks, and said, I'm quitting. I'm done. I can't work with this anymore. And all of a sudden, the second plane hits the tower. And I got up, and I went back to work. And that thought that had crossed my mind was gone forever. And we didn't do much that day except jump on the air saying, I feel like Nate Bargatze, Nashville's next. We're all on the, oh no, Nashville's next. So we were doing that stuff, but for the most part, we were just sitting in the newsroom in silence watching the national coverage going, I can't believe that this is actually happening right now. Yeah. So you don't forget those stories. How they impact you and how they change kind of the way you look at the world.
You're a rare event, though, because most reporters, they come into town and they're here for like 2 years.
Yeah.
They're gone again to their next gig.
Yeah.
But you got here and were able to set in pretty quickly there to.
Rick, I wanted to. There was part of me. I interviewed for jobs in Atlanta. I interviewed for jobs in Dallas. I think Jacksonville. But every time I would go there, I would say, what does this town have to offer that Nashville doesn't?
Yeah.
Right? And you start looking at that. And every time I had to come down to the decision whether I stay or go, it was like, no. And I'm so glad because having a front row seat to watching Middle Tennessee go the way it has, after growing up a country music fan, first of all, my dad's AM radio, listened to what he used to call the real country music. Not this fake country music, it's real country music. Yeah. So, no, I'm so glad I didn't do that TV thing where you itch and you got to get out of the market.
But it's the it city, isn't it? Still?
Yeah. We're still calling it that, right?
Yes.
See, I still this day don't understand because it's that trust factor. When I watched Channel 2 forever and watched you. It was that trust factor I got because everybody else was in for a little while and then they'd be gone again.
We fooled you.
Well, you got me. But, it became a trust thing because I was in police work and I dealt with the media all the time. And when you got a new reporter that you've never seen before come in there, then they were on their phone texting or calling. And then what it was is some producer back there that they were going over questions of what they need to ask, but they had no clue what they really didn't care. It just felt like me. It was going to be either we had a good hook, it's going to give me 2 minutes, or it was going to be something that I'd get 30 seconds for.
Right.
And that trust factor, it drove me crazy.
Yeah.
When the Captain D's happened, I released the details because Fox 17, we went on America's Most Wanted. So we had to give them hooks. So we put 5 things together and said, hey, here they are.
Yep.
So to be fair to 2, 4, and 5, I called everybody in. I gave everybody the same stuff. I did all the on-camera interviews they wanted, everything, but you couldn't air it until that night. Let them air their show, and then y'all can have it.
Right. And when you violate that trust, that's never forgotten, right?
A station called their even number, and it's not 2, so you can narrow it down which one it was. But, come director calls me and says, hey, I feel like it's the right of our viewers that we go ahead and release all that. And I had a team basically sit in, so if you called in with some kind of lead, I had a team of guys that were going to take that information and then be able to work it.
Yeah.
I didn't have that team together until after that show aired. And I was like, it's the only fair thing to do.
So one thing that kind of escapes me, what was the final clue or tip that led to Paul Dennis Reed?
It was that show.
It was the show.
So one of the victims, I had 3 victims in that, and one, they were from Memphis. He was training to be a Captain D's manager.
I remember.
And his wife would call me every week. She'd come be like one of my best friends. And I said, Julie, you got to find something else to put your anger towards. And she says, I don't know what to do. And that was on a Friday. And she called me on Monday. She said, I figured it out. And I said, what? And she says, we're going to go on America's Most Wanted. And I said, man, that's usually they know who it is, not us a whodunit.
Right.
So next thing I know, a producer calls me and said, hey, you know this Julie Myers? I said, yeah, I do very well.
She was the one doing it.
She don't have your cell number,
right?
But she got it going.
Right.
That was the first show they did. But that one of the suspects sat in a hotel room with 2 other people and watched it and said, they got that all wrong. This is how we did it. And they called. But we had to get the reward money up, and the right information out there. And the news finally worked with us after some wrangling there. But
see, there are a few good things that news does, right?
Amen.
Right.
Yeah. We relied heavily on you back in the day, but it's gone with social media now. It's rarely that police ever contact the news.
Well, this is the thing. I when I was interviewed on that podcast, I was talking about, like, everything that local news used to be strong at has been taken away, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember like when you used to watch the TV screen to see if the school was closed?
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Well, we started listening to the radio. Then the TV stole it from radio. Well, then the phones stole it from TV.
Sure.
I remember we were sitting in a meeting talking about our snow coverage of the next day and how we were going to be the first on with those closings, and all the phones started buzzing on the table during the meeting, and everyone picked it up like, oh, my kids are off tomorrow. My kids are off tomorrow. So by the time you go on the air, everyone knows already,
Yeah,
and you're still making a big deal out of it.
Sure.
Don't go out driving in the snow, Wayne, okay? It's dangerous out here.
I try
Trust
not
me,
to.
I'm out here. Our brains are back. Does that mean we have to go?
We have to take our second break.
Okay.
We're going to take our second break. You listen to the Tuesday Morning Roundtable Show with Rick and Wayne, and we have Neil Orrin with us today. So we'll be right back with you in just a minute.
All right, guys, if you're only middle-aged but wondering why it seems harder to keep up, you're not alone. It may be caused by low testosterone. Testosterone therapy, or TRT, can help you get back to your best. But not just any TRT, not those websites offering only basic treatments. You have to see the provider specialist at Low T Center. They offer advanced personalized treatments with over a decade of experience. At Low T Center, you'll start with a simple test and get your results in about 25 minutes. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment online. lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
If your credit card bills have gotten out of hand, call Consolidated Credit now. If the interest rates on your credit cards are so high, it'll take years to get out of debt. Call Consolidated Credit now. They've helped over 10 million people without destroying your credit. They can reduce your interest rates, lower your total payments up to 50% to get you out of debt fast. For a free consultation, call Consolidated Credit now. The program works.
Call 800-210-4298. 800-210-4298. 800-210-4298.
Consolidated Credit Solutions Incorporated, 5701 West Sunrise Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33313. Licensed by the New York Department of Financial Services and by the Vermont Department of Financial Regulation. Kansas CSO 0019051. Maryland DM 1492. Oregon DM 892. Licensed by the Virginia State Corporation Commission, license number DC83. Service may adversely affect the individual's credit. Non-payment of debt may lead to additional finance charges or collections activity, including legal action. Actual interest rates, length of program, and monthly payment reductions will vary by consumer and creditor. Yours could be higher or lower. Not a loan company. We do not lend money.
Rutherford County is one of the fastest growing communities in Tennessee. This is Mike Klassen, the general manager at Middle Point Landfill. As a Class 1 landfill, Middle Point accepts non-hazardous municipal solid waste, approved special waste, and commercial waste. We have served this region for 2 decades, providing free disposal to all Rutherford County residents and low-cost disposal to Rutherford County businesses. Learn more at middlepointlandfill.com. For public services, we are sustainability in action.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
And good morning, and welcome back to the third and final segment of Tuesday Mornings with Rick and Wayne. Well, we have one more segment.
Just getting rolling here.
We're gonna we have again Nashville icon Neil Orrin with us this morning, and we've been talking about his history in Nashville and coming up through the ranks of being the most popular media. Talking head, I guess you would say.
Wayne, everything you're saying is 100% true, right? And I hope Carrie's hearing all this. And, honey, I want you to start referring to me as an icon around the house, please. She loves telling the story about when I was a kid watching him. And I was like, whenever she started, we were with Nikki Verdine and her husband Justin last night, and we were just sitting around, and Nikki mentioned something about how long I'd been there, and she, as soon as her mouth opens up, she goes, when I was a kid. And I'm like, here comes that story. Here we go.
Hey, we talked about some of the tragedy that you had to cover as a news professional. Any funny incidents that come to mind other than you getting stuck at the bottom of your hill that Rick just brought up?
I live in Radnor Lake, and anytime it snows, you're pretty much shut in, right? And so that my little electric car, they're really heavy, but they doesn't help you in the snow one single bit. So I was kind of stuck at the top of the hill, couldn't get down with my big hat.
But y'all have chains in Maine. You know what chains are, right?
We have chains in Maine.
Tesla and chains, they probably don't get along very well.
And there's more snowplows in my town of 2,500 people than there are of Nashville.
That's true.
Like,
That's
it's
true.
like,
Yeah.
not only are the roads clear, but the sidewalks are clear too. You know, it's like, and people honestly do leave their shovels outside their front door in Maine because the snow comes and you got to get that shovel, and it's got to be right there at the door, ready to go. But
wow,
yeah, and it's fun, like looking out and we're expecting snow. And there's kind of excitement about that.
Hours, yeah.
Well, it's just that we don't get it that often, and it's almost like for the children, it's almost like Christmas all over again because of being out of school and everything.
Absolutely,
So there's so much excitement,
and they'll cancel it on the forecast, and that's and then you're stuck as your kids are running around the house. There's no snow on the ground, and you're a parent who had to skip work. Yep,
but Neil said it was coming.
Yeah, right, and that's where we go on the air and say we dodged the bullet. 30 miles south, and we're done. It's over.
And all the kids have hard feelings.
Right. But they're off school regardless.
Well, there you go.
But those are fun days. They're fun days in TV too, and we always have someone show up with food for us, and we were always taken care of by the community.
I always enjoyed you and Nikki punking each other all the time. I mean, you just never knew what was coming next, and it wound up on Facebook as well. And
I was fortunate to spend my last few years with Nikki because she's just wonderful. She comes from a great family. She's a Tennessee.
Right.
She's a Tennessee product. I know her dad Miles very well. Her sisters and everyone in the family. Her mom. They're just great people. So it's good that we're still friends, and it makes missing being on air easier,
right?
When you're still talking to your friends like that, right?
And having dinner and
sitting around and just laughing about the good
shop.
Talking shop, right? Talking about some of the funnier things that have happened to us over the years. I remember one time I got stung by a bee in my elbow, and my arms swelled up so much you couldn't even see the knuckles in my hand, and I couldn't even button my shirt. So I was sitting there, and I didn't realize my hand was on the desk, and people were writing in like, "What's wrong with him? What is wrong?" The camera head's 10 pounds. Well, think about a hand that's swollen like that. It looked like a club. I had a dog, a chocolate lab named Kevin, and Kevin used to come with me, and he used to sit between us at the desk, and no one knew he was there. It was this big old friendly lab. He went everywhere with me until we hired a meteorologist named Kevin Scrupa. And every time we tossed it to Kevin would pop his head up thinking it was time to go. And that was before emails and the internet. Date yourself a little bit here. And a week later, you'd get a letter. Dear Mr. Orm,
gosh, yeah.
I don't know if I'm seeing things or not, but it seems like I see the top of a dog head every once because he's only you'll see a flat lab head.
Sure.
It's the only part of him you could see. But that was hilarious, and Kevin eventually had to stop coming with me to work because it's just getting a little bit too much. So, but 30 years and live TV, and we could talk about funny events that happened over and over again. And those are, you never go out and someone comes up to you and says, you really covered that tragedy very well, but they do remember the funnier moments that didn't go as planned, and people, and still to this day, and that's kind of fun. I have a different relationship now that I'm no longer there. So when I talk to people, it's a different kind of communication. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it thoroughly. Now they're kind of like, that TV guy won't let me leave, honey. He just wants to talk. It's like
being with the cashier again.
It was a totally the opposite way. It's like, when I first moved to town, right, that was the first thing I noticed. Like I was in line at Kroger, and the cashier was having a conversation with everyone. And here I am, Mr. Northeast guy. Like, do you have to talk to everyone? And then I get up there and she starts talking to me. I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's really
that's very nice. Yeah. So
welcome to the South.
Welcome to the South. Home.
So where do you go from here? I did 25 years in police work, and obviously retired out, and then got in the insurance guy. So is insurance in your future, or what are you looking at?
Are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
Buckle up.
I'm buckled.
Okay, I've written a sitcom. I'm trying to find some development money and refine the scripts a little bit there.
Wow.
I'm taking improv classes right now, and that will eventually turn into acting classes. Just you know what? It's totally different. It uses your brain. I'm training right now for the Ironman down in Galveston, Texas on April 6th.
Goodness.
Shout out to my trainer, Hunter Black. He's great. I'm also working on some streaming shows right now that are pretty far along in development. And so now when I see people and they say, miss your face every morning, I say, well, you might see it again. I might be coming in. So I just got a few more hurdles to clear on that. I'm working with a guy named Nick Hyder who has Hit Lab Productions up in the Nolensville area, Nolensville Road, actually.
Sure.
Yeah.
Lennox Village, actually, to be exact. And so we're putting together some programs, and I think people are going to be either, if they like me, pleasantly surprised. If they don't like me, they're like, can we get rid of them? Can we do? But I think people are so comfortable watching stuff on their phone and
Sure.
computers now that that's where you can have more.
That's the
like
future.
having a longer form conversation like this, as opposed to 1 minute and 10 seconds on the state budget.
Yeah.
It's a different dynamic, and I'm
Well, we'd
enjoying
certainly
it.
like to talk you up, so keep us in the loop.
Oh,
if you will.
absolutely. Yeah, you know what? If I'm a guest on your show, you're going to have to be a guest on my show. It goes both ways, dear.
Well, we'd be pleased to.
But it's been remarkable because I've never been busier in my life after leaving Channel 2. I mean, every single day seems to go in 2 seconds, and I never get my list done. So I wake up now and I write a journal. First thoughts of the morning, 10 things I'm doing today, then final thoughts in the morning, and then I go about my day. And it's been a chain of events from one event to another, running into different people, coming up with different projects and doing different things. Carrie, she's opening up her own business, so that's consuming a lot of our time right now too. And if you've opened businesses before, the hoops you have to jump through to get there. There are some tears, there's laughing, but now I understand, and every time I look at a business now, I have a whole new appreciation for the person that runs that business.
It's not set up with all the permitting and license to make it an easy task.
No.
So it's I wouldn't call it a journey, but it's certainly
just my Airbnb
minefield.
business that I have. That alone, the licensing for that with the city and the state, and getting taken care of that, and then going in after every group leaves, and the interesting things you find. I could do a whole show on things I found in my Airbnb. Things left behind.
Well, maybe you could come back and share those with us.
Do you get those emails? Did you by chance find this?
Well, here's the thing. I have found some stuff before that I would not email them just in case it wasn't theirs, right?
I get it.
So, and there's some things that the police officer would like to see that I found there before, but I don't want to, one time I left, one of my guests left the lower window unlocked, and by the time they left and before I got there, someone had gone in and stolen all my TVs, and I had guests coming the next day.
Oh.
So I had to replace 6 big screen TVs in a matter of hours. It was great. Anyway, so I'm busy right now and having more fun than I think I've had in a long time. Making absolutely no money, but having more fun than I've had in a long time. But that money will come. I'm not chasing dollars.
I can tell you that we're really grateful for you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with Rick and I this morning. So thank you.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
What are you going to do about the fish fry? You need a TV person there. I'm not a TV person anymore.
You're still the guy.
Okay, all right. Just to make sure.
You're still the guy.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be the fish fry without Neil Lord.
Well, it's one of my favorite things. So thank you.
It's
very
about
much.
relationships. It's not always. And we've got that relationship, and that's like what you're talking about doing. I could see you're a sure fit for that because you're so trusted in our community.
Amen.
Not only Davidson, but if you take all the county surrounding, we're hitting 3.5-4 million people.
Yeah.
So
well, it's a two-way relationship,
Yeah.
and you got to realize that. But it's crazy to think that was 30 years of doing that job.
I can tell you that if you were not at the fish fry, everybody, where's Neil? they'd be looking, they wouldn't care where Wayne and Rick are, but they'd be worried about Rick.
I won't be there this year, so you'll have to take my slack up.
I like when people come up to me now and say, I watch you every morning. I'm like, well, I haven't been on in 4 months. You haven't? Okay, sorry.
Well, God bless you for all that you've done for our mid-state community. You've been amazing. You've had a servant's heart, and I think Carolyn would would agree. And thank you for all you've done. We've watched you for years, and just continuing to have a relationship with you.
I've always considered it a privilege, and it's only because of my job that I got the front row seat to all that stuff and got a chance to jump in and do that stuff. And it really was a privilege to do it and do it with so many good people. All I was a voice, a recognizable face. It was the people that were doing the work behind the scenes, like you guys. But and thanks to you, when you first asked me to come on the show, I knew I was leaving Channel 2, but no one else did. I said, I can't do it right now, Wayne. And then we called back, and I couldn't talk about certain things because I was in the process of. So we've been going back and forth for 6 months trying to get this done, basically, and we did it
since September.
We did it. So
where you were important to Rick and I to get on this show, we thought this would be the highlight of our radio careers is getting Neil Oren to be with us, because we value you not only
you're
as
a reverend. I don't think you're allowed to talk like that. I think there's 10 commandments that you just violated 4 of them with that statement.
Well, you just not only were you're a professional, but you're our friend, and you give. You give back. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What
so
else?
I'm going to come back anytime you want, because I got a lot of free time. As I told you, the days go real fast, but
we could even do call-ins, because if they cancel last minute, we'll be like, hey, Neil, strap
jump
up,
on,
man. Let's go.
I'm good for it. I'll be on the street reporter. I'm out here. It is snowing. Wayne, it's snowing bad. It's up to my sole of my shoe right now. And if you watch me, I can slide across this parking lot.
Oh, goodness.
If it gets cold enough, I'll throw a cup of water in the air, Wayne. Watch me.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to go, man.
Yeah,
but thank you so much for being with us. And everybody, hope you enjoyed our show today, and we'll be back with you. Who we got coming on next week, Wayne? I don't even look.
Yeah, who'd you spend 6 months getting for next week? Who are you going to tell you've been waiting your whole life next week?
Dr. Mark Gullion. He is the director of the Title I program for the Rutherford County school system.
Yeah,
very good.
Big meeting tonight, school board. I want everybody tuning in for that. It's the school bus contract, so they'll either be busing your kids come next fall, or we're going to have a new plan.
Man!
So it's going to be a big one. So, hey, everybody, have a great week, and be careful tomorrow with our snow and weather coming in. And tune in to Brian, and he'll keep you posted. Have a good day.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WG.